It's the 7th of March 2024, and in this video I'm going to explain why I will not be voting in the next election. But first, I do want to explain to people that follow me that I added 2 videos to YouTube last night. One of them was a video that was recorded earlier that day, and the other one was a video that was recorded in 2018, which was a 3-hour video looking at demonic possession. It really wasn't even a video, really. It was one picture all the way through it with me talking over it. So, but YouTube taken that down after about half an hour, and they said they're taking it down to protect the YouTube community. So YouTube are obviously very concerned about you. They're protecting you from listening to people like me at the end of the day, because obviously, I don't know why. I mean, obviously they're alright with you listening to people like Eminem rapping about raping his own mother and shit, because they make money off that, and he's a corporate, you know, he generates money for them. They probably lose a lot of money if they stop Eminem from advertising on videos. So that's alright, and I'm an Eminem fan, and I'm definitely not asking for Eminem to be cancelled or removed off YouTube or anything like that, because I believe in total freedom of speech, unlike the people that own Google that believe that they should be the only ones that have total freedom of speech. And what are they going to do with this total freedom of speech and freedom of expression? They're going to attempt to rewrite history. They're going to use their AI devices to try to tell us that Vikings was black and Nazis was Asian and all this sort of shit, and they can't produce pictures of happy white families, but they're happy to produce a picture of a happy black family. You know, the Google Gemini, the AI thing that they've just made, that they've had to take down immediately because it was absolutely ridiculous, and it got pointed out for being like that. And then they try to say like it's some sort of malfunction, like it was an accident. And so, of course it wasn't. It was programmed to do that. It's a computer. You know, it's not doing it because it wants to brainwash us. It's doing it because the people that created it are trying to brainwash us. I mean, but you know, that's typical of these kind of people. They're just absolute scumbags. I mean, you know, listen to what Google done about Andy Rubin. Google that, and the way they protected him, even though he was done for sex trafficking and Cecilia, you know. So they're not as woke as what they say they are, really. I mean, he was apparently had women locked up in his fucking house and everything like that. So, you know, they go on like they're all woke and they're all concerned about all these social justice and all this shit. But when it actually comes down to something happening in their own business, all of a sudden they don't give a fuck. Just a bunch of absolute scumbags. I can't stand them. I mean, they're the most dangerous company in the world. They've manipulated the internet. They've manipulated YouTube. They silence anybody that disagrees with them. I mean, people like David Icke and Alex Jones have been removed from YouTube for years now. And, you know, I mean, David Icke is a over 70-year-old man. And, you know, they're scared of people listening to people like that. Why is that? Because a lot of the stuff he says is true, and it always has been. I'm not saying everything he says is true, but a lot of it is undeniably true, and it always has been. We are oppressed, and, you know, the vast majority of people didn't see that to begin with. But anyway, for this video I want to look at Rishi Sunak, because Rishi Sunak, and well, I'm going to explain why I'm not going to vote for the next election, and the main reason is Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer between them. Rishi Sunak recently claimed that there are forces at home trying to tear us apart. That is something I agree with. The only thing is I disagree on who it is, because I think he's talking probably about people like me, or just normal people that live in this country that are trying to get by, when realistically I'm talking about people like him. People like him are trying to tear us apart. People like him and his party, and people in his party and Parliament in general, should be tried for treason, the lot of them, at the end of the day, because what they've done to this country in the last few years is absolutely shocking. I mean, you know, they've created so much poverty. They've created an absolute mess, and they don't tax businesses. Companies like Google with the woke ideologies refuse to pay tax. So it's people like Google that are causing all this poverty, and the British government just allow them to do it because they operate in Ireland. And I know people are saying, well, that's Google taking control, that's Google taking advantage of loopholes. Well, you know, the government should close them fucking loopholes so they don't exist, but they don't want to do that because they're putting their money in offshore accounts and doing similar things as well, so they don't have to pay tax. I mean, Rishi Sunak's wife is a billionaire. You know what I mean? So she's just, it's billionaires telling us working class people what to do. They couldn't imagine living lives from our perspective at the end of the day. So they've got no right to tell us what to do, especially when the most of the problems that are being caused in this country at the moment are actually being caused by them. They're actually terrorists, as far as I see. There was terrorists for COVID when they was telling everybody to have the vaccine, and they're terrorists now. They're just liars, and I wouldn't trust them at all. And then they've got the little puppet mouthpieces, like people like Piers Morgan, demanding that people take the vaccine. He should be locked up as well. Ugly little half-looking prick. I can't stand none of them at the end of the day, but they won't get locked up, and the media won't be held accountable, because what is the media? The media is too big to be held accountable, so they can just say and do whatever they want, and they know it, and nobody's going to hold them accountable. But when you start looking at it, they're not reporting anything about the COVID vaccine. In fact, I don't even talk about the COVID vaccine, because that will get my video taken down. I've had so many videos taken down for talking about the vaccine now, so I'm not even going to talk about it, other than all I'm going to say is that this government are doing a pretty good job of destroying us at the end of the day. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous. And now they're talking about reparations for slaves of the for slaves, of the transatlantic slaves. A UN judge named Patrick Robinson recently says that reparations for transatlantic slavery cannot be ignored by the UK. He said it's required by law, by history and law. So that's according to UN Judge Patrick Robinson. But what about reparations for the slaves of the Industrial Revolution and the Victorian era and even beyond? What about the fact that the people that built Britain was small children that was being exploited by businesses at the time, and they was our ancestors? Do we get any reparations for that? Of course not, because they're racist at the end of the day. And now, my granddad always says to me, when he was young, he was raised by his nan. And the reason he was raised by his nan, his grandma, was because his father was too ill to look after him. His father had his arm destroyed in the war. He just had a weathered arm that he couldn't even move, sort of thing. And he wasn't mentally fit enough as well to look after him, because he had he had post-traumatic stress from World War One. So, so he was brought up by his gran, and his gran was ill at the time, and every morning he used to go to the shop and pick her up a loaf of bread and a bottle of milk, because obviously bread and milk didn't used to last as long as they do nowadays, because people didn't have refrigerators and they didn't used to put preservatives in your bread like they do now. So he used to go and pick up a loaf of bread and a bottle of milk every morning. And every single morning he'd get to school and have the cane for doing that, because he was late going to school, because he used to miss the bus, because he used to have to walk back home and take the bread and milk back home for her. And my gran always talks about how she was taken out of work out of school at the age of 12 and put into work. And all of my nans and granddads lost brothers and loved ones throughout World War One and Two. Obviously, not so much throughout World War One, because I wasn't born then, but they still lost people that was like their uncles and shit who they never knew because of World War One. And then in World War Two, they lost brothers and family, some of whom was only 18, 19, 20 years old. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Where's our reparations for all that? Do we get reparations for that, for the fact that people was lied to and brainwashed into fighting a war? Would the world be any worse now if the Nazis won the war? Because I really can't see how it could be. I think we fought on the wrong side, in all honesty. I mean, and that's not me being racist, because these are racists. So sometimes you match fire with fire, don't you? I mean, they're creating extremists. They're calling us extremists, but they're making us into extremists, because because you're a victim of your surroundings. You're a product of your surroundings. So obviously, if you're constantly being attacked, you're going to attack back. It's as simple as that. And one of the main reasons I won't be voting in this next election is obviously Keir Starmer. I've got no time for Keir Starmer at all either. I did vote for Jeremy Corbyn, And to be honest, I will never vote again because I don't want to legitify politics. These politicians in Parliament, I don't want to legitify them because they're corrupt to the core, and none of them care about us. I mean, you know, it's like Turkey's voting for Bernard Matthews. Do you know what I mean? And all this shit. Why would we vote for these? All they're doing is destroying us and destroying our country. And like I said before, they should be tried for treason. And then you got the councils now that want to raise council tax because they've blown all your money up the wall. I mean, you think these people want to raise council tax? I mean, Shropshire Council are the biggest bunch of clowns I have ever heard of, honestly. I mean, the stuff Shropshire Council do is absolutely unbelievable. And the Shropshire Star is nothing but a little corporate mouthpiece for Shropshire Council. In fact, I'm sure all local newspapers are little mouthpieces for the councils and shit like to keep us all under control. I mean, Shropshire Council recently spent £3 million on advice on how to save money. I could have given that advice for 100 quid, 100 quid. I could have given that advice. Don't spend £3 million on advice, would have been my advice. And try not paying over £51 million for shopping centres. I think it's 3 shopping centres or 2 that are now valued at £12 million. So they paid some business £51 million out of our council tax to hand over to some person that is selling 3 shopping centres or 2 shopping centres. And one of these shopping centres is now closed down and got absolutely empty. No shops in it at all. It used to be thriving. Well, I wouldn't say thriving, but it was full of shops when I first moved here, which was about 6 years ago. Now it's absolutely empty. They're a bunch of corrupt scumbags. I've got no time for them at all. And it just goes for British politics is just absolutely fucked. It's absolutely broken. Britain is absolutely fucked. I mean, people need to start to wake up realistically now before it's too late and stop this from happening somehow. I mean, somehow these people should be taken to court and locked up for what they've done to this country, the lot of them. I mean, like I say, during the times of the Victorians, you had the aristocracy living in absolute luxury throughout the Industrial Revolution and the Victorians and beyond. Living in absolute luxury while the rest of us was living in absolute poverty. We was all slaves, just that some people was slightly better paid slaves than others, but they used to take, I mean, Britain was built on Victorian children, like I say, and them children was our ancestors. And where's our reparations for that? I don't think there should be any reparations paid to anybody, in all fairness, not for things that happened 100 years ago or 200 years ago or something, but if they are, then obviously they should equal the playing field, level the playing field out and think, well, hang on, who built this country? And when you start looking at who built this country, it was Victorian children that was exploited by rich businessmen at the time. So yeah, there should be reparations for everybody, shouldn't there, if that's the case? But MPs won't do that. Obviously MPs recently, according to a website called nursenotes.co.uk, nurses have had a pay rise of £5,400 in the last 14 years, since 2010. But since 2010, MPs have voted themselves a pay rise of £20,000. And that's just the pay rise, that's on top of what they was already getting. So at the end of the day, I think what we should do is replace these MPs with a bunch of cheap foreign labour from Ukraine, Lithuania, and they'll be much cheaper. I mean, they couldn't be much fucking worse if they fucking tried, in all fairness. I mean, and they should run the country, in all fairness. I think you could, I think that's the way forward, get rid of these lot, and let's put a bunch of these Ukrainians and Lithuanians and Romanians in, let them rule the country. Let them decide, and we pay them, £7 an hour or something. We'll save an absolute fortune, and the decisions they make could not possibly be any worse than the decisions that are being made by these people that are paid nearly £100,000 a year, plus to get all these little perks of being a politician, plus they're already part of the aristocracy anyway most of the time, so they're already loaded. Then they get to it's just absolute scumbaggery, and anybody that doesn't see it by now, you know, is totally blind, or them not interested and they've never looked at the situation. You know, them totally brainwashed and distracted from reality and living in some sort of false reality that is being presented to them by these people, and they're lapping it up. At the end of the day, like I say, I will not be voting in the next election. The main reason is because I don't want to legitify these people. These people do not represent me. There's not one single person that is out there to vote for that represents me or anybody like me. So fuck them all at the end of the day. And yeah, that might mean that the Conservatives win another election. But if over 50% of the people don't vote, then surely them 50% of the people are basically saying, we don't need this shit. We don't need these at all. I mean, I can't see how we'd be any worse off without them. In fact, I think we'd be much better off without them. Like I say, replace them with a bunch of cheap Europeans. That's the way I think we should go about it. And lock these lot up, put them all into fucking prison and shit like that. I mean, that's what I think should happen anyway. But thanks for watching. I'm out.